Congressman Ike Skelton's accomplishments and leadership on so many issues related to the United States military and foreign policy are well known and will endure for many years. History will note that at the heart of his career at the United States Congress was his dedication to the constitutional principle of civilian control over the military. And just as President Truman took that proposition very seriously, so did Ike Skelton. And because the name of Ike Skelton will always be linked with the honest and faithful administration of the public interest, the Truman Foundation is proud to present him with the 2012 Truman Good Neighbor Award. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Carl Soberst, for your overly generous introduction. I'm truly honored to be with you today to receive the Harry S. Truman Good Neighbor Award. I'm humbled and I'm grateful to the Foundation for this recognition. However, this is not my first experience with this award. A good number of years ago, at the behest of Henry Towns, I was able to help secure Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill to be here to receive the award. Every several days prior to the award luncheon, Henry Towns called me asking me if I were sure that Tip O'Neill would show up. I did accompany Speaker O'Neill and his Chief of Staff, Chris Matthews, on the Air Force airplane, and he was here to receive this honor and deliver his remarks. It was September 17, 1928. The occasion was the dedication of the Pioneer Mother Monument in my hometown of Lexington. The huge statue of a mother with flowing skirts, a bonnet, two clinging children depicted the courage of women who moved west with their families. The newspaper reported that there were approximately 10,000 people in attendance. The keynote speaker was the president of the National Old Trails Association, and another speaker represented the Lexington American Legion Post. The first was the Jackson County Court judge named Harry Truman, and the other was the young Lafayette County prosecuting attorney, Navy veteran Ike Skelton. That acquaintance lasted a lifetime, and I was the beneficiary of that acquaintance, in particular by my friendship with the county court judge's daughter, Margaret. Life consists of ironies, as Ike Skelton the younger, son of the 1928 prosecuting attorney, is here receiving the prestigious Harry S. Truman Good Neighbor Award. And I would hope that both of those speakers in that 1928 occasion would be pleased with the ceremony today. I'm deeply touched and greatly honored. It's interesting to note that I've had a lifetime of being a country lawyer, interrupted by 34 years in Congress. It's good to see my Hush Blackwell law partners here today. I'd like to remind them that the founder of our law firm, NFE Blackwell, was born and raised in my hometown of Lexington, growing up just 2 blocks from where Patty and I live today. Needless to say, I enjoyed representing my wonderful Missouri neighbors in the 4th Congressional District during my years in Washington. I took the opportunity to help further the legacy of President Truman whenever I could. Thanks to my colleague and mentor, Congressman Dick Bowling of Kansas City, I served over 30 years on the Board of Trustees of the Harry S. Truman Scholarship Foundation, several of those years serving with the President's daughter, Margaret. I sponsored the legislation that provided for the joint session of Congress commemorating the 100th birthday of Harry S. Truman. The event reflected the great service of Missouri's favorite son, and Tip O'Neill, the speaker, remarked that the Truman ceremony was the best commemorative joint session of Congress he ever witnessed. I also sponsored legislation requiring the federal government to assume possession and ownership of the Truman home on Delaware Street in Independence, in accordance with Mrs. Truman's will. Together with my Missouri colleague, Roy Blunt, legislation was passed naming the State Department building in Washington the Harry S. Truman Building. and I was pleased to urge the Postal Department to issue a commemorative stamp honoring the President. What pleased me most was my successful 8-year effort to name an American aircraft carrier after President Truman. Thanks to Secretary of the Navy John Dalton, the USS Harry S. Truman is a standard bearer for America on the high seas. The legacy of Harry Truman is kept alive and well just down the road in Independence at the Truman Library. Scholars study those arduous days that ended the Second World War and the beginnings of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. It was a good thing that our country had Harry Truman at its helm. Those scholars are defining President Truman in his day and time for those who followed to learn and emulate. Their scholarship reflects two characteristics: exceptional character and good judgment. I'm sure that his strength of character came from the hand that rocked the cradle. His adoration of his mother was legendary. Eric Sevareid, the noted art journalist of yesteryear, in speaking of Harry Truman, said, "It was character, just plain character." His good judgment came from his insatiable study of history. When his daughter Margaret took me by the home to visit with her mother, I well remember the shelves of history books that undoubtedly had been devoured by the president. It was early in 1935 when the newly elected United States Senator visited the Northeast Missouri State Teachers College and was introduced to the young student Fred Schwingel by the then president of the college. The college president told the senator all about young Fred Schwingel being president of the student body, his academic leadership, and the like, and the senator ignored that and looked straight at young Fred and said to him, "Young man, if you want to be a good American, you must know your history." Fred Schwingel never forgot that advice given by the newly elected United States Senator Harry Truman. Fred Schwingel later was a 10-year member of Congress and later the official historian for the United States Capitol. I compliment the leadership of those who operate the Truman Library. It only provides for the opportunity to learn of the past, but it provides the opportunity to be inspired by the life of Harry Truman. It was my good fortune to attend the dedication of the Truman Library in 1957, along with my Jackson County Assistant Prosecutor friend Austin Shute, after which I accompanied a Lexington friend of President Truman to the reception at the Truman home on Delaware Street. It was there that I met and had a pleasant conversation with Chief Justice Earl Warren. During Truman's day, there seemed to be many insurmountable problems and challenges, and yet good decisions, perseverance, and goodwill got our country through those difficult days. Today, the challenges we find are different. Though they be domestic or foreign, it's up to us to take a chapter from the Truman past, draw on the knowledge and inspiration therefrom, and sail ahead. The one overriding pole star that Truman has given us Americans is faith in our country. There is no room for naysayers, for those defeatists. Fortunately, there are many who believe challenges can be met and the job can be done. That was Harry Truman's way of doing things. We need to be inspired by the Truman legacy of positive thinking and positive action. The verdict of history seems to be that Truman acquitted himself remarkably well on the world stage. As my late friend Lafayette County Sheriff Gene Darnell used to say, the best politics is doing a good job. And Truman certainly fit that bill. But I don't believe historians necessarily do justice in describing two qualities that define Harry Truman. First, I always found him to be an extremely kind and compassionate man. I'll never forget his kindness to me, the letters he wrote to me when I was in the hospital as a teenager, and the encouragement he gave me to run for public office. Let me share examples of his kindness toward others. A University of Missouri buddy from Independence, young Rufus Burris, and I decided we would try to meet President Truman's train during a 1952 campaign whistle stop in Jefferson City. It's hard to believe today, but we knocked on the door of the train, introduced ourselves to the Secret Service agent, told him who we were, and that we would like to see the president. Minutes later, we were ushered onto the train where we had a short but pleasant visit with the president, Mr. Truman, called Rufus by his nickname, Sonny. During that campaign stop, I saw Truman purposely step down from the train platform to greet a man who had no legs and was getting around on wooden boards and roller skates. The man had struggled to the front of the crowd to catch a glimpse of the president. Truman thanked him for coming, and they visited for a few moments. But the president also prevented the press from making a spectacle by holding his hand up and waving a press camera away. Second, Truman did not suffer fools or disloyalty. Everyone knows about Truman's controversial decision to fire General MacArthur. My father sent Truman a telegram to express his support and that of the Lafayette County neighbors for Truman's high-profile personnel change. In the years that have passed since, the principles of civilian control look better and better, thanks to Harry Truman. President Truman liked to tell the story about the grave marker in Tombstone, Arizona, that read, "Here lies Jack Williams. He done his damnedest." Truman always strived to do just that, to do his damnedest, that is, to do his best. I try to do the same, and I think it's about the highest praise a person can receive. As an inspiration to leaders and to people in all walks of life, Truman has few equals. His strength of character, his firm leadership, and his integrity were the guiding lights of his service to America. And he epitomizes the quality described by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in his poem, Psalm of Life. Great men, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime and departing leave behind us footsteps on the sands of time. The life of the great Harry Truman will always remind us how much a person can contribute through a life of public service. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to try to follow that example. I know that our country will continue to prosper for generations to come in the tradition of Harry Truman's public service. Thank you, and God bless.